Saeed Abdur-Rahman, and for my final project I wanted to do something a little different, and I wanted to look at some of the ways that media influences our perceptions of the world in which we live in and one another. So in the old days, we only had a few threats to fear when it came to media manipulation: the government propagandists and the hustling publicists. They were both serious threats, but vigilance worked as a clear and simple defense. They were the exceptions rather than the rule. They exploited the fact that media was trusted and reliable. I can remember watching Walter Cronkite, and he always said, "And that's the way it is." And he always looked so trustworthy, so that whatever came out of his mouth was almost like gospel because Walter Cronkite said. Today, with our blog and web-driven media cycle, nothing can escape exaggeration, distortion, fabrication, simplification, and everything we see or hear is subject to critical theory, or critical thinking, excuse me. Okay, now here are two images, right? And if you look at them and you say to yourself, well, you know, the caption reads, "No one thinks that these people are representative of Christians." And it's a picture of the Ku Klux Klan. And it asks, so why do many people think that these people are representative of Muslims? So what happens, the media distorts images, right? So now it's to the fact where, you know, anybody who's Muslim is looked at as though they might be a terrorist. So what happens is, you know, because of the media coverage and because of the select media images, you know, you're suspect because of your religion. But you have the same group, you have another group of people who have committed extremely heinous acts for years under the guise of Christianity, but no one questions Christianity for their actions. One of the biggest misconceptions or over-exaggerations of the media is that there are more black men between the ages of, I don't know, 18 and 34, I believe it might be, in prison, when in fact the opposite is more precise or more true. There are more black men enrolled in post-secondary education than there are actually in prison, right? And if you look at the graph that I put up, you know, in 2000 there were more black men in prison, but as of 2010 there is 844,600 black men in prison, and there's over a million in secondary schools, higher education. But if you look at the images that the media portrays, you wouldn't see that, you wouldn't get that. And if I lived in, I don't know, a very rural country or a very rural town where I didn't see black people except for what I saw on TV, then this would be this would be what I thought of them. This would be how I acted, how I reacted when I saw one. This would determine how I interacted. So the first picture is it's a scene from Baltimore when they rioted over the Freddie Gray case, right? Now the first picture you see is an image of black men actually protecting the police from protesters, right? Now, that's not the image you saw on national TV or in the papers. What you saw was the bottom picture where there was destruction, right? So right away you see two pictures, two different elements, but you see the distortion, right? Okay, what's the difference in these two flags? Now I chose both of these because one, the swastika is banned. Like, you can't fly a swastika anywhere, right? But in some states they still fly the Confederate flag, which you know, the swastika to Jewish people is analogous to the Confederate flag for black people, right? The same sort of hatred, the same sort of heinous acts were committed, by people flying these flags. But yet, there's a fight. There was recently a fight to remove it from South Carolina, but there are still some states who have it in their flag, which begs the question: how is that different from that? Okay, now, so we have pictures of individuals, right? And the first two individuals are the individuals who committed the heinous act in Columbine, Colorado, right? Killing all these people. The second picture is an individual who actually killed, 400 some people at an embassy in New York, or so, I'm not in New York, I'm sorry, Timothy McVeigh. And then we have the guy who recently killed some people at Planned Parenthood. Then we have the guy from the Newtown, Connecticut massacre, right? And in publications, these individuals was labeled with things like loners, mentally unstable. One guy was called, Timothy McVeigh was called disgruntled. The guy who killed the people in Newtown, Connecticut, I believe his name was Adam or something or another. He was classified or said he was mentally unstable, right? So now we have thug, right? A thug is a violent person as defined by Webster, especially a criminal, ruffian, hooligan, vandal, hoodlum, or gangster. So now we have Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old unarmed black youth killed by a neighborhood watchman, and he was labeled thug based on the fact that he had a Facebook profile where there was weed and possibly guns, right? Now, 17 is the age of rebellion in the life cycle. So, did it make him a thug because he had pictures of weed on his Facebook profile? And why was it so readily attached to him, the label of thug, right? He didn't kill anybody. He was killed, okay? Freddie Gray and the protesters who protested after his death, they were immediately labeled thug, right? Michael Brown, who had no criminal record, right? He was labeled thug, and much was made of his size, right? And the police officer testified that he was scared because he saw this big and black youth. He was labeled thug, right? So when you look at how some people are labeled mentally unstable versus some people being labeled thug, this is an impression, and this influences how we deal with each other, how we see each other, and how we perceive each other. So the media will gladly show pictures of this, right? And this basically represents, I don't know, gang, urban youth, I don't know, but they look like they are ready to commit acts of crime. They just look like it, right? Just by what they have on and how they are, pointing guns and all this type of thing. But they won't show you pictures like this of, black men graduating from higher education, right? This image of the youth who look like thugs will get more airplay and be in more pictures than will the images of black people going to colleges. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about just the 90s, okay? Because in the 90s, we had shows like The Cosby Show, right? We had Parenthood. And basically, those shows were geared around, wholesome families, two-parent black families. They both were elevating. They were talking about being uplifted. Education was important, things of that nature. Today, we have shows like Empire, which shows totally dysfunctional family. Right? Totally dysfunctional family where the guy hates the fact that his son is homosexual, and his mother, the mother of his children spent 17 years in prison to protect him. Then you have a picture like How to Get Away with Murder, where the lead character is a black woman who's married to a white man but has an affair with a black man, right? And then of course you have Scandal, which where the lead character is a black woman, highly intelligent, who's having an affair with a white man who's the president. So you could just look at the perception, right? Whereas at one point, you could have seen us as upward mobile and family oriented. You see now there are shows that depict us being dysfunctional and women who are homewreckers or homebreakers, right? Now, along with that, there's the subliminal message that it's okay. And I don't have any problem with interracial marriages or interracial dating. But my contention would be, if you want to show it one side, well, then have movies or have shows that show black men with white women. Like, it should be even, but it's not, right? I remember the furor over Guess Who's Coming to Dinner when Sidney Poitier played the black doctor who was introduced to the young lady's family, and how there was this big discourse. Notice, however, that he was a doctor. Okay, so when I deal with media influences, I try to keep my mind, my soul, and my heart strong, right? Because I don't want hatred in my heart. I don't want to deal with people based on the color of their skin. I want to deal with people due to the content of their character. And one of the questions that was asked for this final project was, how can I make a difference, right? So one of the ways I make a difference, again, is keeping my mind straight, my soul straight, and my heart strong. And when I do that, I translate strength in my community, in my family, and in my overall interaction with people. I don't necessarily fix my problems. I fix my thinking, right? Because I understand that my thinking is the root of all of my problems, right? Especially when it comes to dealing with other people, right? Especially when it comes to dealing with ignorance, dealing with racism, dealing with misconceptions, right? I have to fix my thinking, and that will in fact help me deal with my problems. Lastly, encourage each other, right? We have to encourage each other to be better to each other. We have to encourage each other, and I know it might sound utopian, but we're all people, and we all have challenges. If you survey a white family and a black family about what's most important to them, those answers would be similar. Might be something like family. It might be something like security. It might be something about good education. It's really no difference. It's just how we're perceived as different, and the media plays a big role in perpetuating those myths. Last but not least, don't just teach the kids how to count. Teach them what counts most: kindness, faith, courage, effort, integrity, gratitude, politeness, generosity, and resilience. These will go a long way. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day.